Did you know that in the late 1980s, the company that makes your favorite soda was briefly the owner of the sixth largest navy in the world? It sounds like a plot from a wild action movie, but it's a true story. How on earth did PepsiCo, a soft drink giant, end up with a fleet of Soviet warships? This isn't just a bizarre historical footnote. It's a masterclass in deal-making, international politics, and the sheer audacity of corporate ambition. So, grab a cold one and let us dive into the incredible story of how Pepsi traded its sugary syrup for military hardware and became a temporary naval power. Our story begins not in the 1980s, but way back in 1959, at the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union decided to hold national exhibitions in each other's capitals to showcase their respective ways of life. In Moscow, a young and ambitious Pepsi executive named Donald Kendall saw a golden opportunity. He managed to get a photo of the Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, sipping a cup of Pepsi alongside the then U.S. Vice President, Richard Nixon. This photo was a marketing coup. It was splashed across newspapers worldwide and instantly put Pepsi on the map inside the Iron Curtain. For the average Soviet citizen who had never tasted an American soft drink, Pepsi became a symbol of Western culture, an exotic treat they were eager to try. Kendall's bold move planted a seed that would grow into one of the most unusual business deals in history. Fast forward to 1972. The Cold War was still chilly, but a period of détente was beginning. Pepsi wanted to officially enter the Soviet market, but there was a huge problem. The Soviet ruble was worthless outside the USSR. You couldn't just exchange it for US dollars. So, how could the Soviets pay for millions of gallons of Pepsi concentrate? The answer was creative, to say the least. They decided to barter. The Soviet government offered Pepsi the exclusive rights to import and sell their premium Stolichnaya vodka in the United States. It was a brilliant quid pro quo. Pepsi would provide the concentrate to build bottling plants across the Soviet Union, and in return, they'd get a highly profitable, top-shelf vodka to sell to American consumers. This deal was a massive success. Soviet citizens finally got their taste of Pepsi, and Americans fell in love with Stoli vodka. For over a decade, this arrangement worked perfectly for both sides. But by the late 1980s, the deal was up for renewal, and Pepsi had a new problem. Their business in the Soviet Union had exploded in popularity. They now had more than 20 bottling plants, and the Soviets were consuming over 1 billion servings of Pepsi a year. The original vodka for soda agreement was no longer enough to cover the cost of all the Pepsi concentrate they were shipping. The Soviet Union was also on the brink of economic collapse, and hard currency was scarcer than ever. So, when it came time to renegotiate, the Soviets made an offer that left Pepsi executives completely stunned. They said, "We don't have cash, and the vodka isn't enough anymore. But what we do have is a lot of military equipment. How about we pay you with a naval fleet?" And so, in 1989, PepsiCo signed a deal that made them the proud owners of 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer. Donald Kendall, the same executive who started it all, famously joked to the US National Security Advisor, "We're disarming the Soviet Union faster than you are." For a brief moment, PepsiCo commanded the sixth largest navy on the planet. Of course, they had no intention of going to war with Coca-Cola. The ships were old, obsolete, and destined for the scrapyard. Pepsi immediately signed a deal with a Swedish company to have the entire fleet dismantled and sold for scrap metal. The deal was essentially a massive, complicated barter for raw materials. Pepsi wasn't in the warship business. They were in the getting paid business, and they found a way to do it. However, the story doesn't have a perfectly happy ending for Pepsi. Just 2 years after this historic deal, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. This dramatic geopolitical shift completely changed the business landscape. Pepsi's exclusive access to this massive market vanished overnight. The new, independent republics, including Russia, opened their doors to everyone. Coca-Cola, Pepsi's longtime rival, which had been shut out for decades, rushed in with massive investments and aggressive marketing campaigns. Suddenly, Pepsi's first mover advantage was gone. They went from being the only cola game in town to fighting a fierce battle for market share. The very system that had allowed their strange and wonderful deals to happen had crumbled, and with it, their dominant position. So, what can we learn from this wild saga? First, it's a testament to creative problem-solving. When faced with the impossible challenge of a non-convertible currency, Pepsi didn't give up. They bartered vodka and eventually warships. This teaches us that in business, you have to be willing to think outside the box to make a deal work. Second, it highlights the power of first-mover advantage. By getting in early, Pepsi established a brand presence that lasted for decades. They became synonymous with Western culture in the Soviet Union. But finally, it's a powerful, cautionary tale about geopolitical risk. Pepsi's entire empire was built on a political system that was ultimately unstable. When that system collapsed, their strategic advantage evaporated almost instantly. It shows that no matter how clever your business strategy is, you are always at the mercy of larger global forces. The story of Pepsi's Navy remains one of the most fascinating chapters in business history. A reminder that sometimes the boldest moves come with the biggest risks. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as crazy as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into incredible historical events. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was this a genius move or a risky gamble? See you in the next video.